Hello and thanks for joining us again on the conversation. Now it's time for us to switch gears into our second topic of the day. British officials repeatedly told the government not to strike a deal with Rwanda over asylum seekers, court documents have revealed. Lawmakers acting for asylum seekers from countries including Syria, lawyers, acting for asylum seekers from countries including Syria and Iraq, as well as charities and border force staff have been sent thousands of documents detailing internal consideration of the policy, which they argue to be unlawful. Documents presented to a High Court hearing on Tuesday said that Rwanda was initially excluded from the shortlist of potential partners countries for Priti Patel's proposed immigration policy and human rights ground. They show that on the 10th of February 2021, the UK High Commissioner to Rwanda indicated that the country should not be pursued as an option for the planned policy migration. The reasons given included that it has been accused of recruiting refugees to conduct armed operations in neighboring countries. It has a poor human rights record regardless of the conventions it has signed up to, and has been criticized by the United Kingdom itself for extrajudicial killings, death in custody, enforced disappearances, torture, and crackdowns on anyone critical of the regime. Now, joining us live this evening on the conversation, we have Nweke, a global affairs analyst, who joins in live from Brussels in Belgium. And we also have Achena, human rights activist, who joins in from the Ugandan capital, Kampala. A warm welcome to you both, and thanks for joining us on the conversation.
Thank you. Pleasure to be with you, Gbenga.
Yes. So
It's a pleasure to be on.
I'd like to start with you, Cheng. What do you make of these revelations by the United Kingdom's ambassador to Rwanda advising against this asylum deal? Because it puts it in a broader context that the same country that proposed to have this deal, a senior government official and representative of this country, the United Kingdom, is initially opposed it.
Well, I'm not surprised that this was the case. I think that there are voices within the UK that may have some sensibilities about them. I think the whole externalization of borders and asylum by European countries is something that should be condemned overall. I don't think it matters whether it is the UK to Rwanda or the US to sending Afghans to Uganda. The shirking of global responsibility and their particular responsibilities regarding asylum and the violation of their own laws are problematic. And the fact that they are dealing with legendarily autocratic countries is problematic. If they really thought that this was something right that they were doing, why is it done in secrecy and we only hear about it at the end result? This wouldn't be the first time. Denmark tried to do this with Rwanda in 2021, and the AU condemned it quite harshly, saying that it was essentially racist and xenophobic and it shouldn't happen. So I think the UK went ahead and did it again with Rwanda, and Denmark has been seen to be again negotiating with Rwanda again in April this year to send more asylees there. And I think the whole thing is just rather unfortunate.
Thank you, Cheng. I'd like to bring in Collins. Now, Collins, officials in the Foreign Office advised against any agreement with Rwanda, including a May 20th, 2021 memo saying it continued to advise against engagement and suggesting that it does not have a functioning asylum system in compliance with refugee conventions obligations. Why, despite knowing all of this, is the United Kingdom government hell-bent on this deal? And also, does the resignation of Boris Johnson in any way kill this deal? Does it make it the end of the deal? Well, what's your take on all of this?
Two things to put in the fore here is, number one, the UK and the world is dealing with a prime minister, now an outgoing prime minister, that had no values. He had very serious issues. His relationship with telling the truth is a very poor one. The records are there. Go back to the recordings of the campaign for Brexit, and you will begin to see some of the things that mark him out as a habitual liar. Now, the Rwanda deal was not different. It has now been, opened up. It has now been revealed that the whole case for, the deal was based on lies. Now, on lies, as a matter of fact, because there are multiple. Now, the fact that they also claim that that their working is independent has now been proven to be completely false, because Rwandan government was actually favored with the draft statement, the draft document, and actively, deliberately sought for the input which they received. So on that basis, I believe that they have a case that is crumbling. The fact that Boris Johnson is an outgoing, prime minister actually makes matters worse for him, because on the basis of what has been revealed so far, it will surprise me that any incoming prime minister will not spend time reviewing everything that Boris Johnson had done under his premiership, rather than actually pressing ahead with what has now been obviously, characterized with all sorts of malpractices. Maybe even, criminal indictment ought to follow. So, no, I do not.
But it's the courts that would decide at the end of the day, right, Collins?
Absolutely. You have the court that will decide. Then you also have the court of public opinion that is very, very active at this moment, reviewing and reassessing what we have, been favored with in terms of, the revelations. And ultimately, the court is going to make a judgment on the basis of information before them, and of course, the rebuttal from government, which we still wait to see. But there is a political side to it, and that is where the court of public opinion comes in. So we're dealing with two courts, the court of law and then the court of public opinion, and both sides don't appear, to be kind or will be kind to Boris Johnson and the
Okay, Collins. I'd like to bring in Acheng. Acheng, you are a member of the civil society, and I'm sure you're familiar. It's not the first time that court cases will be brought to, in order to press on some of the policies and some of the principles you hold dear. Do these revelations that were exposed in court yesterday, do they help the case against this UK-Rwanda asylum deal? And if they do, in which way does it help support the case against it?
I'm sorry I missed part of your question, but I will answer what I think I heard. If it comes to, well, my first point is, why does the government need to make a deal that it knows is wrong just so civil society can go to court and stop it? It makes little sense to me. If the government knows to do something, well, we should stop doing it. Why must civil society now come up and start taking a matter to court to stop them from doing something that is illegal? Now, do they have a case? I think they have a case, but I have not read the papers of the court papers. But I think they may not have a case in a legal court because, the government may get some exemptions due to the power that the government has. But I think, for me, the biggest disappointment is really with our African governments. And The fact that they have accepted this deal for me is an affront to Pan-Africanism. So I would say in the court of African public opinion, definitely they would lose, particularly because if you see the way Africans are being treated, those who are fleeing Ukraine. But I might speak plainly, if they won't take our refugees and provide them with asylum, why should we take theirs? And you know, I think that legality is not as big an issue for me as, you know, Africa's always talking about African problems and African solutions. Now, if we can't solve our own problems, why are we taking European problems and trying to solve them? And they're not even that big of a deal of problems. Look at even the percentage of people that have this so-called influx that they're going crazy about. It's not a huge influx. Africa still holds 85% of the refugee population in the world. So there is this hullabaloo about that, oh, we are overrun by asylum seekers, and it's really very petty, and I think it more has to do with British politics than it has to do with the human being.
Okay, Acheng. Now, Collins, Acheng just said that why is Rwanda and why is Africa taking care of the United Kingdom's problems, and that in the court of opinion for Pan-Africanism, this is wrong. You should be taking care of your African brothers. Now, Rwanda's Foreign Affairs Minister, Vincent Biruta, said that the agreement is about ensuring that people are protected and respected, and to empower to further their own ambitions and settle permanently in Rwanda if they chose. He also added that this country is already home to more than 100,000 refugees from countries including Burundi, Congo, Libya, and Pakistan. Does this make Rwanda an ideal destination for offshore asylum seekers based on their records?
Far from it. Far from it. As a matter of fact, this is a colossal failure on the part of Rwanda. There are two things at play here as far as Rwanda is concerned. Number one is transactionism. The Rwandan government has actually miscalculated that, this is something that is going to net Rwanda, some, good cash, some good financial benefit. In the first place, that was why they went into this. They didn't foresee, despite, all the rehearsal, all the script that they have wrote out and had written out and handed over to the Foreign Affairs Minister to defend them, it is very obvious that those defense that they had built are seriously crumbling. So their transactionism is actually failing. Secondly, their calculation that actually doing this will, project Rwanda as an international player in the area of, receiving and harboring refugees, that too has failed because, of course, there are question marks on how Rwanda as a nation state is actually receiving and treating refugees that actually made direct application to them. They haven't lived up to international standards.
I mean, just for context, I would like to add here that Rwandan police in 2018 shot at least 12 refugees dead as they protested outside the UNHCR office in Karongi district. Looking at these allegations, why did Rwanda even come up in the first place? And this is documented, it's on record. You don't, if you're very hospitable to asylum seekers, you don't open fire at protesting refugees.
Excellent remark, Gbenga, and you are not alone in that remark. The UK High Commissioner to Rwanda actually, in black and white, it has now been revealed, warned against this deal precisely for the same reason that you have mentioned. People at the Home Office and at the Foreign Office as well actually re-echoed the same warning, saying that the UK will be unforgivably compromising themselves if they go ahead with this deal. Because what it means essentially is that UK will no longer be in the position to draw Rwanda's attention to the atrocities that they are already committing and are poised to commit more. And so their conscience, the conscience of the UK government would have been thoroughly mortgaged if they go ahead with this deal. So yes, it is poor judgment on the part of Rwandan government, but also abject miscalculation on their part.
Thank you very much, Colin Nweke. Always a pleasure talking to you. I'd also like to thank Achenga Chena joining us from Kitgum in Uganda for being a part of this conversation. I'm afraid this is where we have to draw the curtains on today's conversation. In the first half of the program, we did talk about about the Kenyan deputy presidential elections debate. And we just concluded our conversation on the UK, the latest developments in the UK-Rwanda asylum deal. This is where we draw the curtains. I'm Gbenga Aborowa. Thank you very much for being a part of the program on behalf of the team and I. Bye-bye.